Hey guys, this is Frodan with GameSpot at the BattleNet World Championships Day Number 2, joined by MrBitter and RotterDaM, also known as the BitterDam casting duo. Guys, I first have to ask, but I want to target this to MrBitter. How are you enjoying Shanghai?
Shanghai is a beautiful city, Dan. I've had a great time here. Can't wait to come back.
How about you, Kev?
Yeah, actually I had a really good time so far, so I like it.
Yeah, actually, it's really funny because I know you guys have been to China before for an IEM stop. How do you guys compare the China esports scene, especially around StarCraft 2, compared to some of the international, especially as casters who've traveled pretty much the entire world?
I think people have always sort of said that StarCraft hasn't been as big of a hit here in China as it has been in other parts of the world. It's certainly taken off in the West, and it's obviously very strong in Korea. But there's a great crowd out here today. I've been very pleased with the Chinese support, and it looks really bright. I think Blizzard has a very bright future here in China.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think it's still growing. I mean, I've been here a lot in my Warcraft 3 days, and I've seen some really crazy stuff. It's definitely not there yet, but yeah, I think if you give it time, I mean, StarCraft 2 is still so young. Heart of the Swarm is coming. You don't know what it's going to do with China. Maybe even at the time of Legacy of the Void, maybe by then suddenly the game gets really popular in China. You don't know how it goes, but it's definitely growing, and I think it's a good start.
I think one thing that's also been a big concern is the skill gap. About a year ago at BlizzCon, it was probably the peak of Korean dominance. They win everything, IEM, DreamHacks, MLGs, all the titles went to them. Now in 2012, we've seen a lot of titles go the other way to foreigners, especially Europeans stepping up, even some North Americans. And this tournament, foreigners are showing up. And I know you two have been really big proponent for a lot of players, especially like Titan, for example, in Europe as a Protoss undiscovered. What are your thoughts about the current skill gap? Is there a skill gap, or is just maybe a tournament of anomalies as considering we have the best foreigners?
There's definitely a skill gap. There's no argument there. And I would say, we were actually having this conversation backstage just a little while ago. I would say that skill gap's probably widening. But there are still those elite foreign players who can go very far in these tournaments, who can beat anybody on any given Sunday. And this weekend in particular, a lot of them are showing up and playing some great StarCraft. I think at the end of the day, it's pretty likely that we'll have a Korean champion, but we've got some great foreign players that are still fighting and could still end up taking this thing.
I think actually the most positive thing for foreigners is that we don't actually see the faces that we always see going oh so far. I mean, if you would have asked me, does a foreigner have what it takes to take home this tournament, I would have said yes in the start of the tournament, but then two names that jump in my mind are Nurture and Stefano. Like those two guys, I thought they have what it takes. Now we actually see Vortex putting up a great fight while we're having this conversation. He's up 2-2 against Creator Prime in the quarterfinals of this tournament. I think it's insane that Vortex just keep having good runs after good runs in so many tournaments, and he's really starting to establish himself among those other players. I think that's awesome. Soppy, we haven't seen that much from him yet, but he's putting up a great fight right now against Sparting. He's 2-2 as well in the quarterfinals of this tournament. I think that's the best thing for foreigners, that it's not always the same guys, that maybe a few other guys will actually be able to compete with these absolute top level players, because that's what they are.
I couldn't agree more, guys. Let's talk a little bit about you two, and now that you guys have been working at NASL, where I've been able to have the pleasure of seeing you guys a lot, how is it completely different considering you guys used to be like a traveling event pair, and comparing to casting at a studio? Is there a lot of difficulties? Because there have been people saying, you know, we see BitterDam every day. Do you feel like it degrades your quality of casting, or do you guys feel like you're strong as ever, especially considering that now you guys are starting to go back to events more?
No, I don't think it degrades our quality at all, man. It makes us better. Anytime we get to work together more, it allows us to kind of build our craft more. Gives us more crazy, stupid stories to tell, you know. We get to cut up a lot, have some fun. I really love working in the studio setting. I mean, traveling was great. The year I spent at ESL is probably one of the best years of my life. But at the same time, I think there's a lot to be said for sitting back in a studio, kind of working on polish more, working on production value more. And it's really helped me grow, not just as a broadcaster, but as somebody that's learning the broadcast industry, right? The both in front of and behind the camera part. So I've really loved it. I've enjoyed the transition. Sometimes I miss the travel, but we still get to come out to some events. So on the whole, I think it's been a great move.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't think it makes us worse. I do think, of course, there might be days where we're not as good as others. Like in a tournament, you really look forward to the tournament. You have all your data ready. You're super well prepared. And most of the time, in tournaments, players go all out. They don't give up till the very last end, so that often creates for crazy games, crazy comebacks. Well, if you see us every single day casting regular league games, you might see some players sometimes just not caring hard enough. And then, of course, if you have a couple of average games, the quality of the broadcast is not going to be the same as when we cast the best games in the world. So in that way, sometimes you might say like, okay, I watched I watched them cast today. It wasn't as good as when I saw them cast at the World Championship finals or at an IEM or at the NASL finals, for instance. But yeah, I don't think that's a comparison. You can't just compare those two things. It's a whole different story. Other than that, I still like working in the studio. I've always worked a lot in the studio anyway, even when I was at ESL. Even before Ben came, I did a lot alone. That became kind of depressing after a while. But I just love casting StarCraft, and it's something like right now I've been in Europe for 2-3 weeks, and then I'm just sitting at home. It's like just feels like something's missing in my life. Like it's just not the same. So I like working in the studio because you can't work an event every single week.
I miss you too, Kev. I want to also ask, guys, 2012 is coming to a close. What do you guys really like that we improved this year compared to 2011, and what can we really work towards as a StarCraft 2 community scene for 2013? Let's start off with Kev this time.
Sorry, I'm a little bit sick, so my nose was stuck. Ask Ben first, because I was really not paying attention. So I know the question, but I was not paying attention, so I didn't think of the answer yet.
It's all good, bro. I got your back on this one. 2012 was great because we are reaching more people than ever before, is I think the biggest thing. Esports in general, like the overarching thing, this whole esports monster, has grown to like gigantic new heights. I think there's a little bit of a problem with oversaturation. I think that conversation has been broached multiple times, and I think we all know it, that there's so many tournaments, there's so many events happening, there's so much StarCraft being played that it can sometimes be difficult to follow it all. This isn't all bad. It just means that we have to sort of consolidate and focus more on delivering a discernible storyline in 2013. And I can say pretty much, yes, that's something that we are going to be doing next year and more as we move forward. So the good stuff is we're speaking to more people than we ever have. The stuff that we need to improve on is just the way that we present it, and we're building on it every single day.
Of course, what Ben said as well, I completely agree. On a certain moment, it was just too crazy. I said this earlier today, I think, on a cast, or I think I said it last night to one of the guys, that in Warcraft 3, I was literally used to watching every single professional game that was played of my race, no matter what tournament it was, no matter what online league. In StarCraft 2, it's even impossible to watch every single major because there are 2 majors in the same weekend. So sometimes it just gets too crazy, and that's something we have to change. Not only just for the tournaments to be better, but just for us. I mean, we want to watch as much StarCraft as possible, and we want to stay up to date, and we want to cheer for our favorite players. Like, even though when we work in this industry, we still have favorite players, and if that's not possible, it just gets too chaotic. Something else, I think, is that in 2012, I think for a little while overall, I felt like we were in a negative spiral in the community. Like everything was suddenly quite negative. Everybody was complaining. And now suddenly I feel like the last 2 months everybody's starting to be a bit more happy again. And earlier this year as well. And we see just a lot of, like, just for instance, what I think about right now is like the guy who makes the funny cartoons. Like he made one of those cartoons for me. Like that kind of stuff is so cool. And I want to see more of that stuff because I really think that StarCraft 2 community is just the funniest community out there. I mean, every single day you can go to Reddit, you'll laugh about something, you know, like, or you just check Twitter and people write you something funny again. Some people made a funny GIF or whatever. So I hope that we just keep being a happy family all together because nobody gets happy of negative stuff.
That's an awesome way to wrap it up. I also want to do one last thing that I've done with every caster, which is a quick rapid-fire question and answer. I just say one phrase, one question. You guys say the first thing that comes to your mind, whether it's 1- or 2-word answers. Favorite caster to work with other than each other?
The Muslim.
DGW.
Favorite player to watch for Protoss?
Sasa.
Titan.
Favorite player for Zerg?
Stefano.
Nuccio.
Favorite player for Terra?
The Muslim.
Lucifron.
Most underhyped story of BWC?
Lowly.
Lowly.
And finally, your favorite event to cast of 2012?
Ukraine and Kiev, Ukraine and Russian nationals in Kiev.
Oh man, loaded question. I have to say BWC.
Yeah, no, mine was kind of kidding. It's really hard to pick. It's kind of impossible, but I just always have a lot of fun. But Kiev was fun.
These guys do have a lot of fun. Check them out at NASL. And if you want more, check out GameSpot.com/esports for all BWC coverage.